Jonathan Haidt, a professor and author, joins the podcast to discuss his latest book, The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. Haidt explains that unlike previous generational shifts, the current mental health crisis among young people is unprecedented in its scale and synchronization across the developed world. He notes that around 2012-2013, there was a sharp increase in depression, anxiety, and self-harm among girls in particular, coinciding with the widespread adoption of smartphones and social media by adolescents. Haidt distinguishes this situation from previous technological advancements like television or video games, emphasizing that young people themselves are recognizing the negative impact of social media on their lives. He cites surveys showing that the majority of young people wish platforms like TikTok had never been invented, despite continuing to use them due to social pressure and addiction. Haidt delves into the psychological mechanisms behind anxiety and its long-term implications. He explains that while fear is a normal and adaptive emotion, chronic anxiety can lead to hormonal dysregulation and various health problems. The current epidemic of anxiety among young people is characterized by a shift towards more anxious tendencies across the population. Haidt criticizes some current approaches to addressing mental health in schools, such as excessive focus on labeling emotions and discussing anxiety, which may inadvertently reinforce these issues. Instead, he advocates for more exposure to real-world experiences and challenges, arguing that overcoming anxiety requires facing fears in natural settings rather than dwelling on emotions in classroom exercises. The conversation turns to the differing effects of social media on boys and girls. Haidt explains that while both genders are affected, girls show a clearer correlation between social media use and mental health issues. He attributes this to psychological differences in motivation between genders, with girls generally being more oriented towards connection and relationships, and boys towards agency, making things happen. For girls, social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok exploit their natural inclinations towards social comparison, relationship-focused aggression, and sensitivity to appearance-based judgments. Boys, while also affected, tend to be more drawn to video games and pornography, which present their own set of developmental challenges. Haidt expresses concern about the stunted development of many boys in Gen Z, noting that they often lack social skills and struggle with real-world interactions. He contrasts this with the achievements of millennials at similar ages, highlighting the potential long-term consequences of the current generation's altered developmental trajectory. Haidt offers several recommendations to address the mental health crisis. 1. Raise the age for smartphone ownership and social media access to 14 and 16 respectively. 2. Implement phone-free policies in schools. 3. Increase opportunities for free play and independence in childhood. 4. Improve age verification on online platforms. 5. Consider identity verification for social media accounts. He emphasizes the importance of collective action, noting that parents and educators are increasingly ready to implement changes but need coordination and support. Haidt mentions organizations like smartphone-free schools that provide resources for advocating these policies. The discussion shifts to the spiritual implications of our digital lives. Haidt, drawing on his background in studying ancient wisdom and moral psychology, observes that many spiritual traditions emphasize practices that are antithetical to our current phone-based lifestyles. He notes that spiritual elevation often involves moving upward, metaphorically, while many aspects of digital life pull us downward. Haidt argues that constant notifications, the lack of sacred time or space in the digital realm, and the pressure to constantly manage one's personal brand online all work against traditional spiritual practices and values. He suggests that adults, like children, need to reclaim control over their attention and prioritize real-world connections and experiences in nature to counteract these effects. The conversation touches on the ethical responsibilities of businesses, particularly in the tech sector. Haidt distinguishes between traditional businesses that create value for consumers and the current model of social media companies, where users are the product sold to advertisers. He points out the paradox of billions of people using products that they wish had never been invented, arguing that this represents an unprecedented destruction of human value. Haidt calls for greater regulation and accountability for social media companies, particularly in protecting children from online harms. He advocates for effective age verification systems and suggests that the current legal framework, particularly in the United States, is inadequate for addressing the unique challenges posed by social media platforms. In concluding the discussion, Haidt expresses optimism that the current mental health crisis can be substantially addressed within a year or two if there is coordinated action. He encourages listeners to raise awareness about the importance of attention as a valuable resource, to prioritize real-world communities and relationships, and to spend more time in nature. The conversation ends with a rapid-fire question session where Haidt shares personal insights and experiences. He reiterates his call for mandatory age verification on the internet as a crucial step in protecting children from online harms.